Alright, here we are again. We're up here in, I think it's County Road 44H, something like that. Anyway, we're up in the Buckhorn Canyon. There's my car. Right over here is Moody Hill. So, any of you locals are going to know. So this is just the parking area where everybody parks their big trucks when they're pulling up their motorcycles and four-wheelers to go up that road. And so I'm just kind of walking along here and noticing stuff, and oh golly, what do we have here? This is somebody left their Carmex here, and I was checking it out, and it looks full, but it just goes to show you can find things that could be useful if you ever got stuck out here or whatever, because humans leave garbage everywhere. So now I wouldn't recommend, picking up somebody's Carmex tube and using it, because, they might give you a lasting memory. But what it is actually it's wax. And so you can use this, like let's say you only had one match or something, and so you, or whatever, and you find some fuzzy stuff for kindling or whatever, and you just put this wax on it, and then when you light it with a lighter, it'll act like a candle. So it won't burn forever, but you just kind of rub it on, and then you light your kindling, and it acts like a wax, and so it'll slowly burn, and it'll help you to build your fire up better. If you don't have a proper bird's nest or that kind of thing. But anyway, it can come in handy, and it's just an example of just human garbage that, if you come across it, I don't recommend leaving it there. Like I'm going to go put it in my car, but, just stick it in your backpack, and it can come in useful for a lot of different things. Well, maybe not a lot of things, fire-related things. So it's just an example of, treasure in the trash pile, so to speak, except for in this particular case. In this particular case, the trash pile happens to be the mountains, which is not a... Okay, so I found this one here. This is a very small mullein plant. They're very, very fuzzy. They work very good for toilet paper. I have used it for that purpose, and it works great. But it also works for like bronchitis or lung issues. If you make a tea or you can smoke it, it'll grow this really tall. See this right here? It's just starting to flower, but this will get really, really tall, and then you'll have seeds all over, millions of them. One thing you could do with that, you're not technically allowed to do it, but one thing you could do with that is build a little, go out in the river and stack a bunch of rocks down the middle, and then like have it come over like this and kind of block it off so that the river flows that way, and you got this little area, and then you sprinkle these seeds all in there, and it's a fish poison. So when the fish swims up the one way and gets stuck in the rocks, it won't be able to breathe, and it'll just float to the top, and then you can just grab it. Now, it's illegal, but just because you're not allowed to do it doesn't mean you can't do it. So, let's say it's an emergency situation. Maybe you went down in a plane, and you have to hike your way out of the mountains, and you're hungry and starving, and there's a river, and there's some mullein, and you're really, really hungry. Well, guess what? You could do that. But when the cops show up to write you a ticket, you can ask them how to get back to your house. See how that works? Like, in a life or death situation, who gives a crap? You're not allowed to catch the king's fish without a license or whatever. Yeah, screw the king, I need a fish. So you could do that with this. It is illegal. I have to point that out, though. And I'm not encouraging you to do it. I'm just saying that you can if you need to. Okay, moving on. What we also have right here, people grow this in their landscaping. This is I believe this is one of the native Colorado varieties. This is, if you can see the little feathery leaf right there. See how it's very feathery? And then it has like this, like umbrelated flower top like that. This is called yarrow. I think it's in Achalaceae, named after the famous warrior Achilles. One fun thing about this, it contains thujone. You definitely may not necessarily want to use it for that, but it has thujone in it, like wormwood or different kinds of Russian sage. But more importantly, in our kind of situation here, more importantly, when we're up here in our situation in the mountains like so, maybe you fell off a rock or down some slippery trail or something and you cut yourself. If you gather up these leaves and then macerate it with a rock or something, smash it all up, maybe even chew it for a little while, and then just slap it right on the wound. It has styptic properties where it'll encourage blood clotting and it will stop bleeding, which is why they named it after Achilles, because you know when you get slashed on a battlefield you kind of want to get that to stop bleeding. But this grows around here, up here, everywhere. So most of this knowledge I have is, it's just in case, you know. It's better to know things and not ever need it than to need to know things and not know it, you know. So these are just random food sources. I wouldn't necessarily recommend eating yarrow though. Oh, here we got more yellow coneflower. Now I don't know what the uses for that is. I'll have to look that up. Anyway, moving on. There you go. Here's an example of a wild lettuce. I mean, look at how thick that one got. That's a big old sucker. And then these little flowers up here. See how they're, you know, perfect for making capers. Of course, you'd want to get them before they have these little white tufts on them. When they're still yellow flowers. But, you know, capers are good. There you go. This is one of our local prickly pear varieties. Now, as you can see, it's very, very, very spiny. Very spiny. But this one right there, that is... Here, need a poker or pointer. Here we go. Right there. That's the little seed top, or the little fruit. And that one's not the best condition, but here, hold on. See, here's more. Whoops. I'll focus on it. More lamb's quarter. See, the little flower tops are easy to identify from kind of far away. And this one's pretty small. You know, the leaves are pretty small. But I mean, it's just indicative that there's more around here. So you could pull a bunch and make a nice salad out of it. And more prickly wild lettuce. There's some flowers. I don't know what those are. Like I said, I'm not an expert. I just know a few things about a lot of stuff and a lot of stuff about a few things. All right, here we are down by the little stream here. And what we have here, you can see that very well. See these? All right, I'll focus in on it here. These are wild raspberries. And they are good. See? Wild raspberries. And they'll probably just be all up and down the creek here, because the little berries will fall. Yeah, here's some. The little berries will fall. You know, the birds will eat them or whatever and poop them all over, and they'll float downstream or however that works. But there's a bunch over here. Oh, it's not focusing for some reason. Hold please. There we go. So there's some down there. Some just right here. So you know, if you happen to be lost in the woods or whatever, they always tell you, just walk downstream and you'll find civilization. And, you know, as a generality, that's true. But by the same token, if you walk upstream, you probably find some civilization too. And sometimes the stream will just take you off into some hills somewhere and it'll go on for miles away from civilization. So it's not necessarily a strict rule that you should follow. But that being said, along the stream, you're going to find a lot of choke cherries and wild fruits and things of that nature. So, you know, just keep your eyes open for like wild raspberries. And over here, we have more of that mullein, right? But I want to show you this one right here. I am not wearing my hiking shoes. I'm wearing my crummy shoes that have no tread. So if I fall into the river, that should be pretty fun. But look at what we have here. You'll recognize it. See that? That big puff ball? And it looks like dandelions, right? Well, what we have here is called salsify. And every part of this plant is edible. And the leaves are, here, I'll show you. They do make that white milk, but it's not sour like it would be on a dandelion. So, you know, you just eat that whole flower. Check this out. I'll just, I'll tell you, it is one of the most delicious edible weeds that you will find. It tastes just kind of like lettuce, but it has kind of a nutty sunflower seed flavor to it. And it's not just the flower, it's like the whole thing. The leaves, the stems, this, you know, the whole thing has kind of a sunflower seed flavor to it. And it grows everywhere, you know, because these little things will float around. And a lot of people just pull them out of their garden. They're like, oh, it's a weed, get it out of there. But it's delicious. And quite, apparently it's pretty nutritious as well. So anyway, here we also have this mullein. See, this seed spike has, or this flower spike has gotten, you know, a little tall. And there we go. Okay, here's something that grows along rivers that you want to kind of keep an eye out. It's not an important necessarily plant as far as food goes, and I'll show you why. So if we look here, now as a general rule, if it has a white berry, don't eat it. Now there are a few exceptions to that rule, but what we have here, these are in the baneberry family, I think. Baneberry, well anyway, it's called doll's eye. Can you see why? Maybe it's called doll's eye. Here, he's looking at you. Look over there. Right? Doll's eye is highly toxic. Very, very, very toxic. And it's a lethal toxin. And from what I understand, there is no cure for it. So don't eat the white berries. They don't taste like burning, they taste like death. See the little white berries? I want to say it's baneberry. I'll put the genus species down in the bottom of the video here. But yeah, these are doll's eye. Do not eat. Alright, what we have here. Look here. See the leaves? Kind of the same shape as a cottonwood or a poplar, but it has this white bark. And I'll show you something about this bark. So these are called quaking aspen trees. Well, technically, it is a quaking aspen tree. Because what's fun about aspens is that they send out these runner shoots in their root systems, and then till it finds a clear spot, and then it'll pop one up there. and then that one will run some shoots over and it'll pop up there. So all of these are probably the very same tree. Okay? Just different little shoots of the same tree. But here's an important thing to know. If you just rub that, and you see there's this white powder on my hand. Well, you rub that on your skin, so you just get a bunch of it. And you see, there's just powder just coming off of it, right? And that can be used as a sunscreen. Like, it's not like super, super strong sunscreen, but it will help. I can't remember the SPF it gives you, but it works. I've used it. You kind of have to put a lot, so you'll want to find like a big one like that one, something with a lot of powder on it. Anyway, it works as a sunscreen, so it's good. All right, moving on. All right, here's one. See that right there in the distance? I'm starting from way back here because you'll see exactly where I'm going with this. It'll stand right out against the landscape because of that brown seed top there. Freaking deer flies everywhere. So what we have here, this is Rumex crispus, or curly dock. This deer fly really wants to take a bite out of me. As you can see, the seed tops here, once they start to ripen up, they turn this brown color, and they're easy to harvest. You just grab it like so, and just pull them right off like that. So you just fill your bag up with those, and if you have a means to roast those up over a fire, they'll start to smell like coffee. And it's hard to see them with my crummy camera, but they have like, each side of the seed has like a little leaflet, so there's like, it's little three-sided leaf, well, whatever you call it. Here, we'll zoom in. So anyway, so that's a way to identify it. But in the middle of that, there's a little hard seed. Now, this is in the buckwheat family. So if you have any kinds of allergies to buckwheat, you might want to be careful around this one. But if you roast these up on like a metal pan or something, they start to smell like coffee. And then, once they're all nice and roasted up, you can grind them up with a rock. This fly is biting me through my shirt. Sorry. Alright, I gotta get moving. Anyway, it actually makes a delicious coffee. So you roast it up, just grind it all up on some rocks, make it into powder or whatever, and then boil it up and make some coffee. Now, the way it tastes is, it tastes like coffee that the waitress came, or like maybe you are drinking a cup of tea and the waitress comes by and says, "You want a refill?" And you're like, "Sure." And then they pour coffee into your teacup. It's going to taste like that, like coffee with a little bit of tea after flavor. Now, you can also, what I'll do with this is I will roast it up, and then I will grind it up in my tea mill or a coffee grinder until it's flour. Flights and all. Like, you don't even have to get the seeds out of there. You can just grind it up with the flights. But you'll want to roast it before you grind it. And then you can make little cakes, or I've made pancakes. I've made an actual cake. Now, it does have that coffee flavor to it. And so it can be kind of overpowering if you don't like that flavor. Dang it, sorry, I stopped. Anyway, we'll get down here. So it can be a little overpowering, so you'll want to mix it in with some other flours. I like to do about 1 to 3 ratio. 1 part this, 2 parts regular flour of your desire. Now, this one here, I was just trying to show you the leaves, but as you can see, this is right by the roadside. So it's going to have all kinds of crap on it that you don't want to eat. But it's called curly dock because these leaves are kind of curly like that. There's many kinds of dock that grow everywhere in the East Coast and pretty much everywhere. But they will all they won't have the exact same seed tops, but they'll look similar. And the leaves will look similar. And you can make flour out of pretty much, you know, a bunch of different kinds of dock. But as you know, these grow everywhere. Like there's some over there, like in fields on the side of the road. Like you could literally make this your staple grain. Certain Native American tribes actually did make this their staple grain. I don't remember which tribe, so I'm not going to say. But if you look it up, you'll find out. Anyway, this deer fly is really trying to take a bite out of me, so I'm going to keep walking, see what else we can find. All right, here we found some kind of juniper. Some sort of juniper. Now these can be, this particular variety is kind of prickly, so it's kind of a pain. But, of course, junipers of all kinds grow juniper berries. His prayers have brought forth juniper berries. Of course it brought forth juniper berries. It's a juniper bush. Anyway, that's a Monty Python bit. Anyway, you can eat these. What they are really is, it's like a modified pine cone, believe it or not. You can eat them, but you know, they do taste like juniper bush. And the seeds in them. And wow, this one's actually pretty sweet and delicious, but it's like eating something that's pine flavored with a little bit of sweet in it. But you know, I mean, if you're starving and hungry, there you go. And right next to it, we have one of these really sorry looking currant berry plants. This one's got a dried up currant on it right there. We went over this in the other video. These are mountain gooseberries, or mountain currants, Rocky Mountain currants. I can't remember what they are. But see, single berry, not in a cluster, with the remnants of that little flower sticking off the end. You can refer to the other video for more information on that. Here we go. We have something here. Okay, if you see, here, let's zoom in. Now, I'm not exactly sure what this is. I'm not exactly sure. But it has 4 petals on each flower. Now, that is sometimes indicative of the mustard plants. And this seems to have these long little slender things on it that look an awful lot like mustard plants. And then down here we have the little rosette of these leaves here. And these look like mustard leaves. Now there's a lot of different kinds. There's this kind that grows down kind of around my house that has purple flowers. But I am almost certain enough that this is a type of mustard that I am going to eat part of this leaf and see what happens. Tastes like burning and a little bit of poison death. Let me see here. Yeah, I'm willing to bet that this is a mustard. I'm going to look it up when I get home, and then I'll put the genus in there. But it has kind of a mustardy flavor. Now in Oregon, when I used to live there, they had these mustards that would grow in people's yards like dandelions, and people just pull them out and throw them away. But I would pull them all out and eat them, put them in my salad, and they were delicious. So, I'm not really tasting the classic mustard flavor, but I am going to look them up and find out, because I'm almost 100% that this is a mustard. Here's one that caught my eye here. This is another one of those currant plants. Now these look like they're orange, right? And initially I thought those were golden currants. I'm going to have to look that up. But as we see, the leaf shape is pretty much the same, and it's got the little remnants of the flower at the end there. And I just ate one of these, and it just kind of tastes like a little bit of a sweet, kind of a tomatoey flavor. So I think they're just not ripe. And I think that these are those mountain currants, just like the rest of them. Single berry, not in clusters. I'll have to look up golden currant and see if I'm just wrong about that. But these might just be those mountain currants. They're everywhere up here. And these are the ones that my Boy Scout guys were like, oh, don't eat those. They're the poison ones. It's like, man, you guys are supposed to teach us wilderness survival and you're teaching us dumb things. Anyway, I'm going to look up and find out. I'm pretty sure that these are just those mountain currants that just aren't quite ripe yet. But, you know, they taste all right. And I didn't die. So, you know, here we are just along this roadside. You might see these while you're going along the roadside. Or maybe you've seen them before. What these are, colloquially, they are called the Mexican prickly poppy. And the reason, of course, that they're called that is because they are very, very prickly. They also tend to attract blister beetles, so be careful, you know, if you're doing whatever. Now these here, these are the seed pods. You see how spiky and spiny those are? Now, I'm going to show you something here. If you chop one off there, see? I don't know if you can see that. See how yellow that is? So there's like a yellow sap in it. Like there would be, you know, on like a regular poppy, but this is just bright yellow, like caution yellow, you know. And see, now if you were to extract that milk and dry it in the sun, you know, I'm not suggesting that you should do it, but you could in fact smoke that and, you know, get really intoxicated. Now that being said, these contain somewhat toxic alkaloids, and they have effects like tropane type alkaloids, so I'm not sure if it's actually a tropane alkaloid. I'll look it up. But and it will dilate your pupils, so you definitely don't want to do this and go walking around out in the bright sun. It's not a good idea. It can actually, I mean, if it's bad enough, it can cause permanent blindness. So, you know, just stay in a dark place or whatever. But down in Mexico, I have heard that certain tribes will smoke this, or, you know, even just people recreationally. Now, it is fairly toxic, and the ones down there usually will have like an orange flower. But, you know, to each his own, whatever you feel like doing. I'm not suggesting that you do that, but you could do that. There you go.